The season of Thanksgiving preparations had crept into Boston like a steady tide, filling the streets with the scent of roasted chestnuts from corner vendors and the crisp bite of winter air. The days were growing shorter, and as dusk fell earlier each evening, the city seemed wrapped in a gray-blue veil. Inside her modest apartment, Eleanor Bradford stood by the window, her arms crossed against her chest, watching as the last streaks of daylight faded behind the buildings. A sigh escaped her lips, unbidden but heavy, carrying the weight of exhaustion and the memories of holidays past. "Mom, I don't understand this problem," came Lily's small, frustrated voice from the dining table. Eleanor blinked, drawn back from her drifting thoughts. She turned to see her 13-year-old daughter hunched over a math workbook, the eraser of her pencil worn flat from constant use. Eleanor forced a smile, moving away from the window and setting aside the neat stack of client files she had brought home from the accounting firm. "Which one?" she asked gently, sliding into the chair beside her daughter. "Math?" "Yes." Lily pointed to a page filled with equations. "This one." The teacher explained it, "but it's still confusing." Eleanor leaned in, squinting at the numbers. Her eyes ached from hours of reviewing spreadsheets at work, yet she willed herself to focus. "All right," she murmured. "Let's break it down. You can solve this by subtracting from both sides." She guided Lily's hand with patience, though her mind was tugged in a dozen other directions. Tomorrow's presentation, the growing pile of bills, the possibility of a long overdue promotion that demanded twice the hours. Life as a single mother was a delicate balance, a constant walk across a tightrope. It had been 5 years since her divorce, 5 years since Charles had left for California, reducing his role in Lily's life to a brief phone call on birthdays and an awkward visit once a year at best. When Lily finally nodded in understanding, Eleanor felt a flicker of pride, but just as she began to rise and prepare dinner, the phone rang. The name glowing on the screen made her hesitate. "Hello, Mother," she said cautiously. "Eleanor," came the crisp, composed voice of Carol Bradford. "I finally got through. I was finalizing details for tomorrow's charity gala, but I wanted to call about Thanksgiving. You are coming this year, aren't you?" Eleanor's gaze shifted back to the window, her lips tightening. "I haven't decided yet. Work has been busy." "That excuse again." Carol's tone sharpened, disappointment laced with irritation. "Do you ever think about how your absence reflects on this family? How it hurts your grandmother? Especially this year, Martha's health isn't good." Eleanor bit her lip, the words striking their usual chord of guilt. Her mother, admired in the community as a graceful philanthropist, had always been obsessed with appearances. In her carefully curated world, Eleanor's existence as a divorced single mother was a blemish, an imperfection she could neither conceal nor forgive. "Victoria will be here," Carol continued smoothly. "She's flying in from Hawaii next week. The children are excited, of course." Eleanor's sister, the golden child, Victoria, with her wealthy lawyer husband, her pristine house, and her 2 picture-perfect children, the daughter who never failed to shine under their mother's approving gaze. "I'll think about it," Eleanor murmured at last, weary of the conversation. After she hung up, Lily peeked into the room. "Grandma?" "Yes." "About Thanksgiving, are we going to that house again?" Her daughter's voice carried a nervous edge, her eyes wide with the memory of cold stares and whispered remarks from years before. Eleanor's heart clenched. She had spent the last few holidays shielding Lily from that toxicity, keeping her safe from the barbed comments disguised as jokes, the subtle comparisons that left scars no one else could see. "I don't know yet," Eleanor admitted softly. She reached for her daughter's hand. "But Grandma Martha isn't feeling well. This might be her last Thanksgiving." Lily nodded slowly, a shadow of worry crossing her face. Martha was their only true ally, sharp, kind, unafraid to speak the truth when others looked away. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Eleanor pulled an old photo album from the shelf. Her hands lingered on a faded picture of Martha in her younger years, eyes sharp, expression stern but fair. A woman who had shaped students' lives, a figure of resilience and wisdom. She had been Eleanor's compass, the voice reminding her to hold steady even in the storm. The next morning, Eleanor dialed Martha's number. Eleanor held Lily's hand firmly as they walked up the stone steps to Carol's grand house. The air was crisp with the scent of autumn leaves, and the porch light glowed warmly against the early evening sky. Despite the chill in the air, Eleanor could feel the heat of Lily's small, nervous palm pressing into hers. "Smile, Lily," she whispered gently, giving her daughter's hand a reassuring squeeze. "No matter what happens in there, I'll be right beside you." Lily looked up with wide, uncertain eyes. She nodded, but her lips barely managed a faint smile. The heavy oak door opened, and Carol appeared. She wore an elegant navy dress, her hair arranged in careful curls, not a strand out of place. Her expression was perfectly polite, but her eyes flickered with something colder. "Eleanor, Lily," she greeted with a practiced smile. "You've finally arrived. Everyone else is already here." Eleanor offered the pumpkin pie she had baked that morning. The crust was golden, and the sweet aroma still lingered. "It's homemade," she said simply. "Well," Carol took the pie, her fingers brushing the foil as her lips tightened in a slight frown. "We have plenty of desserts already, but thank you." She turned without another word, leaving Eleanor and Lily to follow on their own. The living room was warm and filled with the sound of chatter. Relatives stood in small clusters, sipping wine and laughing lightly. Near the fireplace, Victoria stood with her husband and children, her new diamond necklace catching the glow of the flames as she waved. "Eleanor, Lily." Her greeting was airy, almost casual, but her eyes lingered with the satisfaction of being noticed. Before Eleanor could respond, a voice called out softly, "Eleanor." Martha sat in a high-backed armchair by the window, a cane leaning against her knee. Age had thinned her cheeks, but her eyes still sparkled with a sharp, intelligent light. "Grandma," Eleanor said warmly, bending to kiss her cheek. Lily followed, offering a shy kiss of her own. "I'm so glad you both came." Martha's wrinkled hands closed over theirs, her grip still firm and full of warmth. "I've had them prepare seats right beside me. Dinner is ready." Carol's voice floated from the dining room. "Please, everyone, to the table." The dining room shimmered with extravagance. Crystal glasses glittered, polished silver cutlery reflected the chandelier's light, and the porcelain plates gleamed white. A grand turkey, perfectly roasted, dominated the center of the table, its golden skin glistening. Martha moved slowly with her cane, taking her seat at the head of the table. She gestured with a smile. "Eleanor, Lily, right here beside me." Once everyone settled and Carol finished her elaborate words of thanks, the meal began. Dishes were passed, voices rose in polite conversation, and laughter filled the air. But when Eleanor glanced down at her place setting, her chest tightened. Every guest had a full set of silver forks and knives, except for her and Lily. "Excuse me," Eleanor said quietly, her voice cutting gently through the hum of conversation. "It seems we don't have forks and knives." The room stilled. For a moment, even the sound of plates being passed stopped. Carol widened her eyes in mock surprise. "Oh my, what happened? I must have forgotten." She gave a little shrug. "Just a small oversight. You can eat with your hands, can't you?" A ripple of shock went around the table. A few relatives gasped softly. Victoria smirked, her laughter sharp as glass. "Lily would suit that," she said with a cruel smile. "Like a dog." Lily froze, her cheeks flushed crimson, and her eyes filled with tears. Her trembling hands hovered over her plate, uncertain. Several relatives looked away uncomfortably, their faces pale with shame they dared not voice. Eleanor's chest burned with rage, but when she caught Martha's gaze, the old woman gave a subtle nod. Her eyes carried a silent message, "Wait." Then, almost imperceptibly, Martha tilted her head toward the floor. Beneath the tablecloth, Eleanor noticed a small bag tucked against the table leg. Her heart quickened. Carefully, she reached down and pulled it into her lap without attracting attention. Inside were two objects, a small recorder with a note that read "Play," and a thick envelope. Eleanor looked at Martha again. The old woman gave a discreet nod, mouthing the word, "Later." Eleanor closed the bag quickly, her hand trembling as she clasped Lily's fingers. "It's all right," she whispered. She pressed the recorder's button, hiding it beneath the tablecloth. The faint red light blinked to life. Carol's cold voice and Victoria's cruel laughter joined the symphony of background chatter, quietly captured. "Is there a problem?" Carol asked from across the table, her smile razor sharp. "The food is getting cold." Eleanor inhaled deeply and raised her chin. No problem at all. With calm defiance, she picked up a piece of turkey with her hands and signaled to Lily to do the same. After a hesitant pause, Lily followed her mother's lead. "Mom?" Lily whispered, her voice shaking. "It's okay, Lily," Eleanor said softly. "This will be settled someday, I promise you." Victoria snickered, Carol smirked, but Eleanor kept her eyes steady, her voice calm. Across the table, Uncle John leaned closer. "Take my fork," he whispered urgently. "I'll get another one." Eleanor shook her head gently. "We're fine, Uncle John, truly." Martha laid her frail hand on Eleanor's knee under the table. "You're strong, Eleanor," she murmured, her voice just for her granddaughter. The meal dragged on, tense and uneasy. Other relatives avoided meeting Eleanor's eyes, ashamed but silent. Eleanor kept her composure, every cruel word and laugh being recorded under the table. When dessert arrived, Carol made a show of slicing a glossy cake from a fashionable patisserie. "Sorry, Eleanor," she said sweetly, too sweetly. "I'll save your pumpkin pie for tomorrow's lunch." Eleanor only smiled faintly. Tonight's humiliation was no longer just a memory, it was evidence. Evidence that one day would be played aloud, and the truth would finally come to light.